Hello everyone and welcome to the latest in our series of Scottish Opera podcasts, podcast number 4. And today I'm joined by Jane Davidson, who is the Director of Education and Outreach at Scottish Opera. Hello Jane.
Hello there.
Well, the first question that I'd like to ask is just for you to explain your role, because it sounds very interesting.
Yes, it is. I think I've got one of the most interesting jobs in the world, actually. And I think one of the things that's the best about it really is the breadth and the depth of what happens on a day-to-day basis. Right. And certainly from our point of view, we have about, on average, 14 to 17 different programmes a year running. And we've got a team of 5 of us, and we have about 70 or 80 freelance artists, actors, singers, musicians, filmmakers, costume set design, people who come in and help us deliver the range of projects that we do. I would say that overall our remit really is to service the community, and the community is the whole of Scotland.
Yes.
And so we look at work in schools, we look at work in early years. A lot of the education work that we do helps to support the sort of the basic requirements of the Scottish schools curriculum and our curriculum for excellence. So, which is an absolute gift to us, because we're lucky enough to have creativity at the heart of the curriculum. And the idea of using music and the performing arts to help support what we call integrated learning, so which is, to me, that's just a posh way of saying helping kids to make connections between things. So, for example, we have a primary schools programme which is the oldest opera education programme in the world. Wow! It's been running since 1971. Wow. And basically we commission work for 8 to 11-year-olds. So it's a 30-minute sung-through opera or piece of music theatre. Can be about any subject, but it involves 3 groups of children, usually class-sized, and 3 performer animateurs. And they go in just for a day to each school. The children have learned the songs in advance, but they go in with a truckload of fabulous costumes, and the children put the opera on in a day. And over the years, I've commissioned 26 pieces for this age group. And again, it can be about anything. It can be science, history, technology, environmental issues, geography, world issues. And there's a whole series of support materials that run alongside it. So in effect, while the children are learning to sing the songs and to perform the piece, they're also learning the sort of the subject matter of the piece, and it gives classroom teachers a really wide range of things that they can do to broaden the whole topic out. And fundamentally, I think what we're trying to help create here, or what we're trying to help develop, is the child's sense of curiosity. Ask questions, explore, develop, make connections. And that sits alongside all the other things which are really important things for us all in life, which is teamwork, it's confidence building. You often find that children who get the most out of a project like ours aren't necessarily going to set the world alight in terms of academics, although language and literacy and numeracy are kind of underpin everything that we do, and these are things that every child needs to learn how to do. So that's a really successful programme. I mean, we see about somewhere between 130 and 140 schools a year with that. That's 100 children at a time, so that's a lot of children.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because when you say it's class-sized, I don't really have an idea what a class size is these days.
Well, you see, in some schools a class size could be 20, and in others it can be 30. And obviously their parents and their families and other children come and see the performance at the end of the day. So you are reaching out to a lot, many thousands of people. And I think one of the nicest accolades about these kind of things are when people say, I wouldn't necessarily go and see Scottish Opera on the main stage. in the Theatre Royal or at the Festival Theatre in Edinburgh. But they came to my school, and my child had an amazing time and was singing the songs and talking about it. So they feel connected in a way. And as a publicly funded company, it's important to us that people who believe that it's a great thing that we have a company that can do this kind of work in Scotland.
See, I think this is a really interesting strand, because it's something I think, I might be wrong about this, but many people who go to Scottish opera as opera lovers, and as you say, go to Theatre Royal, maybe don't even realise that this is going on.
Yeah.
And actually, it's incredibly important for all the reasons that you suggest, not just to kind of get youngsters into opera, but actually just to get the whole idea of performing and the arts increasingly difficult, I find, into schools. And you're saying it is Scotland as your community, so you're taking it all around the country.
I think it's about what our expectations are of citizens. What you and I and the guy in the street or whatever you want to call it, but people are entitled to have access to high quality arts.
Of course.
And that's an interesting word, the entitlement, and because of the sort of geographical and the logistical specialisms of Scotland, we've got a lot of people in the Central Belt, and then we've got everyone else is spread out over a much more, and those people have to have access to. And if you're only having a visit from, for example, our small-scale Opera Highlights company, and that comes once a year maybe, you want to know that it's going to be good. If that's your night out at the opera, then you want it. And people in remote areas, they're obviously so much more used to travelling. So sometimes it's really nice when it comes to them. For it to be in their local primary school is a great thing. They can just trot down the road and see it. And so a lot of the work that we do is about getting out and being in the community and popping up. And we have another project we developed a number of years ago, which we call the pop-up opera trailer. And what we have is a 40-foot container truck that we've built to look like the inside of the Theatre Royal. So our wonderful graphic artists, scenic artists, and our workshops have basically kitted it out. So we've even got the same carpet as the Theatre Royal. We even have a tiny chandelier, and we've got a stage at the end of the trailer where obviously the wheel arches are. So you've got like a little natural stage. And it was an idea I actually pinched from, there's a wonderful Japanese art form called Kamishibai, which means paper story, and it's hundreds of years old in Japan, but basically it's a storyteller and a set of illustrations, and it was particularly big at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, where itinerant storytellers on a bike would go between villages and tell stories, and they would have these beautiful little illustrations in a kind of little box, and as they told the story, they pulled each picture out, and it could be a folk tale, and I was lucky enough to see that actually, and I thought, wow, we could do that with music. And so we developed a format where we take an opera, and we've got a wonderful, our head of music, Derek Clark, will arrange an entire piece for a 20-minute version or 25-minute version with a cello and a harp, or a cello and a guitar. So we have a storyteller, two singers, cello and a harp, costumes, and these wonderful illustrations, and we put it all in the trailer, and we drive the trailer around, and we'll pop up at book festivals, food festivals that communities have already developed. And because the truck, we have our own theatre basically in the back of the truck, and again in some quite remote places, venues are a difficult thing. So although it's tiny, we can do 2 or 3 performances a day, so you can get the best part of 80, 90 people in each time, and that's been a fantastic success. And we've tried out various things, like we've done it on a boat, which has gone up and down the Clyde. We've done it at the top of the gigantic crane along it. We've done it there. We've done it in Scottish Parliament. We've done it in Inverness Prison. We've done it in hospitals, care homes. It's so sort of light on its feet, and I think the beautiful thing is it's really it's great fun. It's 20-25 minutes, as I say, of your time.
Yeah.
You get the entire story. Sometimes, and a lot of the time actually, people will come and say, I've really enjoyed that. I think I might come along and see the whole thing, because we usually have one show that runs.
Yeah.
We've got a main scale version of it running as well. So when you've seen the tiny version, you can go and see the full length if you feel like that.
I was going to say, I remember people's reactions to it, because some people have strong ideas, not just about opera, but musical theatre as well, and they think, that's not really for me. And then, do you get people come up and go, I'm not sure whether I was going to like this, but actually...
Yes, yes, we do. We for the pop-up, we nearly always have a Gilbert and Sullivan, and it's just hilarious, because some people come in and they know all the characters and they can sing along with us, and it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, the singers and the instrumentalists that we send out and the storyteller, they're amazing artists, because opera's not an art form that tends to be really close up and personal.
Yeah.
You're not normally that close to your audience. And even to hear the trained voice, like a baritone voice, the whole truck reverberates, and people, you often sort of see people thinking, "My goodness, I can actually feel that reverberate in my chest."
Reaction.
It's a physical reaction, and but it's quite fun as well for them. And again, they often bring kids, and people are clambering around all over the place. And I just love the fact that we're sitting there right in the middle of the community, and almost going back hundreds and hundreds of years, where artists, performers were a part of the community.
Yeah, and you had the travelling performers as well, absolutely. And we've talked about where you reach out to, but also who you reach out to, because it's kind of across the ages, isn't it? And you've got toddlers things right through. Well,
we've actually just opened a new piece at the Edinburgh Fringe called Foxtrot, which is by composer Liam Patterson, who wrote Bambino, which was our opera for babies, which came out a couple of years ago. So obviously this is the next age group up, so we're looking at the 12 to 24 month old, and these are small people who are independently ambulatory, as we call them, so they can move around themselves. They don't need mum or dad to help them, and the response is, sometimes adults come and see it. We had 2 lovely ladies came last week who are probably grandmas, I think, but they said, gosh, it's like 2 shows in one, because we get to see the opera and we get to see the little ones responding to the opera, and that in itself is just absolutely hilarious and so engaging, the way they respond to the singers.
What is the kind of response of the children now, that is?
Well, when we first did Bambino, which has now been all over the world, we performed at the Metropolitan Opera House with Bambino, we thought, oh my goodness, will it be too loud? Will the volume, will the pitch, and it was remarkable how little that seemed to impact negatively on them. Very occasionally you'll get a wee one that gets a bit of a fright, but once they realise that the world is theirs and they can step into it, for Foxtrot we have a countertenor and a mezzo-soprano, and countertenor is quite an unusual voice type, and not a lot of people, and you do see adults being quite sort of surprised at the it's a beautiful voice, but it's quite an unusual sound compared to a soprano, for example. But the wee ones just get in there and clamber about. It's very interactive. There's a forest of leaves on the floor which can all be picked up. They're not real, but they look real, and they love to get in and burrow, and they love the puppets. We've got 3 or 4 puppets in it. They're fascinated by the musical instruments. They're slightly protected, and we do have minders who rush in and pick them up. But for example, the cello, to watch a 17, 18 month old little one standing right in front of the cello, absolutely fascinated by the sound. And even the movements of the musician who's playing it, they're drinking it in, they're watching every single aspect of it, and it's a really special thing. And I think the performers, I've kind of said to them, you'll never have an audience like this again in your life. I don't care where you end up performing. you'll never have that incredible moment where you actually realise that you're looking at someone who's experiencing this for the very, very first time. So they're hearing a sound or they're seeing something, and of course it's in their faces, and it's a fantastic thing to see. It really is. And what a tonic! Oh my goodness, you come out, you feel fabulous.
Great, yeah. and have performers said how they feel about?
They're great. I mean, they really are great because, for example, Laura, our cellist, at one point she's playing a miniature chord keyboard with one hand. She's got her bow on the cello with the other, and she's singing. And talk about multitasking, and also she's smiling down at a 2-year-old who's staring in front of her about 6 inches away. I think most people do really recognise what a privilege in a strange way it is, because you are really having an impact on someone's first experience. And I should stress, we deliberately made them. They are tiny little operas. They're not, and this is not obviously to denigrate. There's some wonderful children's theatre, music theatre work happening in Scotland, and we're really very, very lucky because we have some wonderful companies making such an innovative and creative work. But we've deliberately designed this. It is a miniaturised opera. I mean, for musically, Foxtrot has got strains of kind of French Baroque, but people only, children will only think that's difficult if somebody says to them, well, it's really difficult music. And they don't, that's not a concept that you understand. It is what it is. And with Bambino, it was the same. We used sort of early Italian music. I think that's probably the key to it. You create it and you make it with the same love and care and attention to detail, to the quality of everything, from the singers to the materials you're using, and people recognise that quality and they appreciate it. And I think they do appreciate that something for really small children is made with the same kind of aspirations. We want them to remember it. We want them to, in a way, feel like, this is my right as a citizen. This is my entitlement, it should be as good as it possibly can be. I'm just thinking of, because people say that's roughly about the age when people have their first memories, and if your first memory of something like that, it might confuse you a little bit, because it's not of your parents, it's of this person. Yes, I know. And music, to have music is that kind of really early memory as well, so interesting. So when you started the role, did you have a kind of idea of a strategy that you wanted to follow, and have you been kind of able to fulfil that? Well, I hate to say, this is my 35th year with the company. So I haven't really done much else. I think one of the joys for me over the years has been seeing how things change and develop, and responding in different ways. And 30 years ago, education work, certainly for an opera company, was seen very much as an add-on. And certainly even in relation to schools and education, it was very much a kind of, this is a nice time for the children. It's it's fun for them to sing and dance and leap around for an hour, but it's not real work. It's not. It doesn't have an impact on any other part of their life. You do it at the end of the term, and it's a nice end to the whole. Exactly. Yeah. And now, of course, as I say, we're in the wonderful position, and I do feel that the UK. In general, and I would like to say Scotland in particular, has developed a really good reputation for our work in this field, and we get a lot of notice and a lot of interest from other countries in the way that we do use the performing arts to support this idea of a very integrated, balanced person who understands the importance of the arts, and all of the things that unlocks. Even language development, opera's an art form that regularly uses, we sing in Italian and French and German, in Czech, there's lots and lots of languages, and so for us that's an absolute integral part of our art form. Now, this is something that obviously the Scottish Government have addressed, the lack of languages, the facility with languages, and they have we've got a great programme, the 1+2 programme, where we're talking about in schools now children get introduced to their second language much earlier, right. And it is having an impact. It's a slow thing, but it's having an impact. But where we can help is by using the integral parts of our art form that actually lend themselves to that sort of thing and provide support in a way that, 20 years ago that just wouldn't have been considered.
And I didn't strike me till now, but by making the music or the theatre opera, it could be the first time that a lot of these people encounter another language,
yes.
encounter Italian or encounter Spanish or whatever it is, and suddenly perhaps that's not such a academic undertaking as actually an artistic
undertaking. That's it, exactly. The same sort of thing kind of occurred to us when we started to develop the work for people with with dementia as well. I think it was 2 years ago we did the very first opera adapted for people living with dementia, the first in the world. And we were inundated from around the world, people saying, tell us more about this, what is this? And about 12 years ago, we started to run a programme called Memory Spinners, where we meet once a week for 8 or 9 weeks, and we have lunch, and then we make we do creative workshops around a theme of an opera that happens to be in our repertoire. So we will learn choruses from the opera, we'll do choreography, we'll make props, and the group, we've got singers and a director and musicians. Everyone comes in, and at the end of this 8 or 9 week period, we do our creative interpretation of Die Fledermaus or La Bohème or whatever it might be. So we began to develop several different groups, but then we realised, and we also used to invite them to a thing called an unwrap, which is a sort of 60-minute long a presentation on the stage of the main theatre, and you've got the orchestra there, and you have a presenter who's explaining maybe some of the more kind of behind the scenes aspects of a particular production. And we used to invite the people from our Memory Spinners group along to that. Then we realised that actually we could go a step further and we could actually stage the work chronologically, but we could have a presenter who would come on and actually would stop the action and would focus on this person, and they'd give a little bit of a kind of exposition. Here's what's going to happen next, look out for this, the guy with the red hat on, he's the baddie, all of this kind of stuff. And people really responded so well to it, and we try and involve it so that we have drinks, we'll go for drinks afterwards, and to make it, especially for people who were regularly used to going to the theatre, any kind of theatre, concerts or anything, to normalise it again and say, this is a very welcoming space. Come and enjoy it. It's much shorter. But the social interaction is every bit as important. And it's a tremendously joyful experience, and we have so much support from other people within our organisation, our help from our colleagues in wardrobe, and people want to come along and be part of it. So you'll quite, and the musicians absolutely love doing it as well, and I think it's because and sadly it's something that touches so many people's lives. So there's nearly always somebody who knows somebody, and to see the pleasure that it gives people, but also it does genuinely break down a lot of misconceptions. Because I used to frequently hear people saying, how can you rehearse? Because won't they just forget from week to week? And you go, no, it's not. And also they think people who are living with dementia don't have the capacity to learn more things, and of course they do. And what you're actually doing is you're focusing on all the things they can do. You're not focusing on things they can't do anymore.
Which is often what stops people being social, because they think, there's certain things I can't do anymore. And I do know that music often offers a great comfort to people who are suffering from dementia or similar issues.
Well, I think, it's where it sits. We've actually got some really wonderful initiatives. If you look at the Playlist for Life, the Sally Magnuson's charity, the idea that when you first have a diagnosis and you're able to identify a series of different songs and pieces of music that have huge meaning to your life, whether it's something that you remember from when your child was born or when you got married or whatever it might be. And we know that it brings enormous comfort to people because they can listen to it with their loved one, and they can remember again. Our version is somewhere that probably slots in, you know, in that we often use music that people have suggested in the group, but we do always teach something new as well. And the way that people respond to that is, you know, it would knock you down with a feather sometimes. It really would.
So it really is education and outreach across the ages.
Oh yes,
right? From the very beginning. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for the future?
Oh my goodness. I think over the last few years we have been aware that, you know, as I say, we're lucky enough to have, we've put the work in, mind you, and we've put the sort of the intellectual effort into it as well, in that we've really thought about things and been prepared to run pilot programs and see what works and see what doesn't. And I think one of the things that we're being encouraged to do by the Scottish Government, who are our principal funders, is, you know, export excellence. You know, Scotland needs to be really proud of the things that we are good at, and when there is a field in which we do excel, it's right that we should be able to kind of stretch out and say, here's something that we know how to do really well. It's not necessarily so much about a financial thing, although that's a really useful thing if you've got something that's worth selling, but it's as much as about that as it is about sharing best practice. And it's, as I say, we're lucky, we've done a lot of work, and it's an important area for us to develop. So you know, more and more we're working internationally, and what we're doing is being recognised internationally. And I genuinely do feel that's a great thing for Scotland, that we are able to fly the flag in that way and to say, here is something that we are good at, that we want to share with you. It's so interesting when you look at other education systems or other in other countries where, for example, you know, the activity and opportunities that are available for elderly people.
Yes.
It's important. There is always something for us to learn too.
Yeah, sure.
But more and more, I think I've become less cynical in some ways as I've got older, not more, in that I'm aware of just how lucky we are in many ways here. And there's a lot of really interesting and valuable work going on, and it's great to be kind of a part of that. And it is nice, as I say, to be able to kind of go internationally and say we're just a small country. However, we've got this going. Yeah.
Well, Jane, it's been fascinating to talk to you, because it was an area of what Scottish Opera do that I didn't have an idea about, and I want to tell other people about it, so I hope folk listening embrace that. But thank you very much for talking to us today.
It's been a huge pleasure, thank you.
And we'll be back soon with someone else from Scottish Opera. Thanks.